behind each language there is a culture. So culture and language are really tied together. So my children, for example, grew up with bits of the Italian culture and bits of the American culture, as it happens. My husband is American, and they were born in Edinburgh. So in fact, they have 3 cultures to deal with, and that can only be an enrichment of personality. It can also help children to understand different points of view and different perspectives.
Learning a language definitely allows you to appreciate and understand the culture associated with that language much better. And I've definitely had experience of that as growing up as a singer. I didn't speak the language, but I sang a lot of Gaelic song. But now as an adult, having learned the language and using the language in my daily life, I definitely feel that it's given me a more in-depth appreciation of the culture. There's obviously that barrier there if you don't speak the language. And you can understand to an extent the culture and you can appreciate that culture, but I think that speaking and using the language on a regular basis has definitely allowed me to gain a more in-depth understanding and appreciation of Gaelic culture.
Speaking other languages helps you to understand that the world is organised differently in different people's linguistic constructions of the world. A good example of that is in Japanese. There are words for yes and no, but Japanese people tend not to like directness, so it's quite important to learn to have nuanced answers to questions that we would answer quite directly in English in order to get things to work for you in a Japanese context. And once you understand that, when you're back working in English again, you've actually got a bigger linguistic repertoire than perhaps you had before, because you can start thinking about, well, maybe a more nuanced answer would be more effective in this context than simply boldly stating yes or no. So you start yourself to see the world differently once you understand how people speaking another language operate, and I think this gives you greater flexibility in your own dealings with other people, whether they're English speakers or speakers of other languages, and whether you're speaking to them in English or in the other language, you're still thinking much more about how other people construct the world than I think you do if you operate only in English, because you know that it's different.
I think being bilingual is very important for people's identity. Clearly, if you're speaking 2 languages very often, it means that you have a kind of dual identity, so you've got an identity for both those languages or related to both those cultures.
It opens your mind. It really does open up your mind. I think you can, by understanding other languages and trying to immerse yourself in other cultures, you see that there isn't just one definite way of doing things, that there are different ways of expressing things, there are different ways of thinking, and it just gives you a much more broader insight, and I think it makes people less single-minded.